Welcome back and thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Williams and this is the Power Coach Approach. Today's training session will be on self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem and self-worth. Well, someone says, well, I thought that this was about how to speak better. Exactly. Self-esteem and self-worth have a direct impact on how well you speak. And so let's talk about how that is and why that is. But first, let's just provide a brief definition of self-esteem and self-worth. So self-esteem is essentially how you feel about yourself. It's your reputation with yourself. It's what you believe about yourself as well, but it's more so how you feel about yourself. Your self-worth is how you feel about your value. That is, do you believe, do you feel like you have something of value to give to others? Do you feel like you have something of value to give to others? Do you feel like your skills or your talents or your abilities or something about your personality, that is who you are, do you feel like that's something that someone else would value? Okay, do you feel like you're a person of value? Just being who you are, even if you were not able to do much of anything, but just your personality and who you are, do you feel like that is something of value? So when we think about self-worth and self-esteem, then we ask the question, how does this impact my speech? How does this impact my speech? And how is this impacted by my speech? So there's something called performance-based self-esteem, performance-based self-esteem. And essentially what that is it is how you feel about yourself based on how you perform. So in the area of speaking, if you speak well, if you speak smoothly, if you speak fluently, then you feel good about yourself, right? And when you don't speak well and you don't speak fluently, then you feel bad about yourself, okay? Now, the inverse of this is also true, that in fact, how you feel impacts how well you speak, and how well you speak impacts how you feel about yourself. So if I feel good about myself, that is, if my self-esteem is up, my self-worth is up, independent of how I speak, but if I just feel good about myself, then chances are I'm probably going to speak better, right? And I'll talk to you a little bit more about exactly how this works, because someone says, that's not necessarily true. I mean, I feel good about myself and I still stutter. And that may be very true, but I just want to show you the connection between these two. So if I feel good about myself, right, then my self-esteem is going to be higher and I'm going to feel like I have greater self-worth, and I'm going to be calmer and I'm going to be more confident, which we'll talk about in the next section, because these things all relate. You know, we're just one person and all these things aren't really separated out, but we are separating them out so we can talk about them, but they're all interrelated. So when I feel good about myself, right, then I'm often able to speak better. And then when I speak better, I feel good about myself. And so it's a cycle that reinforces itself. So someone says then, well then how can I make myself feel better? Because I'm in this cycle where I try to feel good about myself, but then I mess up in an interview, or I'm not able to speak in a presentation, or I'm not able to talk to strangers. And so then my self-esteem starts to come down, all right? Well, one of the things that we'll be looking at later, but I'm just going to share this with you a little bit, and it's something that we've talked about in the DAM strategy, and that is, and this is something that's very simple, believe it or not, but it works, and that is the power of affirmations, the 3P formula, which again I explained in the DAM formula, and I'll talk about it again when we get to the TAP approach, T-A-P, and we talked about that in the introduction, so I won't go into it again, but you will be getting to that as you follow along in these trainings. So how do we increase, or how do you jack up your self-esteem? Well, we'll talk about it briefly right now. One of the easiest ways that you can do it is by giving yourself an injection of affirmations each day, all day long. I'm not just saying this just to share some kind of theory with you, but what I used to do as I was working through this process myself years ago is just tell myself, I like myself. I love myself. Because there were times when my self-esteem would be low because I wasn't able to communicate as well as I wanted to. So I would have to jack up my self-esteem, which made me feel a little better, which helped my speech. Now, it didn't all of a sudden, I didn't start saying affirmations and bam, I'm fluent, but it helped. It helped, and that's what we're doing. This is incremental. You're helping just a little bit, and what you'll see, and we'll talk about the principle of accumulation, that every little bit you do accumulates until all of a sudden you have this momentum going and you start to see these huge gains. But they have to accumulate and they have to start small. And one of the small things that you can do that can have a big impact, short term and long term, is tell yourself, I like myself. I love myself. I like myself. And don't just say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, right? Because you're not even going to believe that, right? But if you say, I like myself, I love myself, I like myself, then you're going to start to actually feel it. Hey, I really do like myself.